welcome to my podcast. My name is Dr. Brendan McCarthy. I am the Chief Medical Officer of Protea Medical Center in Tempe, Arizona. And today I am back in the kitchen preparing food for you guys. I'm continuing with the same topic that I was on last time when I was making beans. And the idea is I really wanted to help you be able to prepare functional foods in a delicious way. Today I'm making one of my everyone loves it when I make it, but I've made it so many times. I'm like, it's just lentils, but it's lentils. I make good lentils. I have a good recipe for lentils. And it's a funny story how I came up with this. When my kids were young, they were not easy to feed. My kids were young, not easy to feed. I'm going to cook, I'm going to cut as we go, and I'll explain what we're doing as we go. But my kids, not great on vegetables, and they were not really interested in, me giving them bribes and, promising them things. They just would not eat vegetables. So I, prior to medicine, spent most of my career working in restaurants. I grew up working in delis and pizza places in New York, and I spent most of my 20s and my early 30s, working in the food industry. So I had some understanding how to cook, and so we started making what my wife called sucker punch meals, where we would mask vegetables into the food. So we'd make risotto, and we'd put zucchini in there, but we would cut the zucchini small, break it down a little bit so it's not recognizable, the shape of it and the texture of it. And then I would get into it more with pasta and sauces. So this was originally a red sauce, just a traditional tomato sauce that I converted over into being used for a delivery system to get my kids to eat lentils and to get them to eat something with more fiber in it. Lentils are one of the highest fiber things I'm going to prescribe people to eat. And fiber, as I mentioned before, we'll keep repeating because it's important to talk about it. Fiber is essential for your body's natural detoxification. It's how your body eliminates certain things through bile. So you eat the fiber, it really helps pull things out of your body that don't belong. Just think of it like that. And when you have higher levels of fiber in your diet, your blood sugars will be more stable. When you have higher levels of fiber in your diet, you're going to lower your cholesterol. Not a ton, but it's going to lower a fair amount. When you increase your fiber in your diet, you're going to have a better impact on colon health, just all of these things. So fiber is an important thing. And getting your kids to be on fiber early in life is a good thing to do. So, the idea is that teach your kids how to eat this food now, and then over time explain them what's in it, and they can realize, lentils are not bad. So I'm starting off, like I do with all things, with its base. And the key to making food taste good is learning the methods that go into preparing it. And the reason I'm saying this is if you look at a recipe for I'm going to do today, the recipe for this is pretty straightforward. I'm going to start off with sauteing onions in olive oil. That's where I've started. I'm doing it in my Instant Pot right now. It's on the saute function. Just get it going, and we're going to get the onions to cook until they're translucent. We're going to add to it some of these carrots. We're going to add to it some of these the celery. And when we put that together, in French, it's called mirepoix. And that's just a combination of 3 different ingredients that would give a nice, unique profile as the base of what we're cooking. Yesterday, or last video, it was sofrito. And that was when I put together, the tomatoes, the onions, the garlic, and I put that together with the carnitas, and that created a sofrito, which is, again, the strong flavored base that you're going to use. When you look at a recipe, it says, okay, take onions, carrots, and celery and put them in a pot. And they don't explain the process of creating the mirepoix, sauteing it, getting the flavors to come together, caramelizing the onions a little bit. This is an important part of making the base of your sauce. If you just take all these things, throw it in this, Instant Pot, and just throw all the ingredients together and just turn it on, it's not going to taste good because I didn't saute up my mirepoix to start. I didn't get the base of the flavors coming together that way, and I didn't layer the flavors. So it's an important part of cooking good food is to understand the steps that go into it and the steps that go into the recipe so that you can make it delicious. Because I know it's overwhelming to learn how to cook. I know it's overwhelming to relearn to cook if you've cooked a little bit here and there in your life, but it's worth it. And I was thinking about this episode the other day. I was driving to work. I was thinking a lot about you guys. And I was thinking about how's this helpful to you? Even if you just pick one recipe that you love and you make it yours, it's that's your signature. This was my signature for a while. So I was making this a lot for my kids. This is your signature dish. from there, you can branch off and make changes in that recipe, or you can make recipes that are similar to it. But you get that skill set, and you develop that ability, and you get very comfortable with working with these tools and these ingredients. That's the idea of cooking, is to slowly, with repetition, build up your skills around preparing the foods that are good for you, that are healthy, and that taste good, and you like to eat. So this soup, this dish, this lentil soup, it's technically a soup, but I sometimes will serve it over pasta. I call it rocket soup. And I call it rocket soup because if you've ever watched Little Einsteins, that was a thing for a hot minute in the early 2000s. It was a TV show on Disney. And I date myself from when my children were young. And it's this little show called Little Einsteins, and they had this rocket ship. And one time the rocket ship got sick. So the kids got together to make a soup for the rocket to drink to get better. And so I guess rockets drink soup. I don't know. Anyway, I named this after rocket soup. So my kids would get so excited that I'm making rocket soup for them. It's the lore of my family. And then as time went by and, I kept moving forward in my life and practicing medicine and all those things, I find myself at a conference. And every once in a while you're at a conference and I'm a little bit of a prankster. I find myself start to airdrop recipes for rocket soup to people at a conference. I'll also do it at like airports. I'll just randomly start sending out recipes if anyone wants this. You know how many people I've sent rocket soup recipes to have no idea who I am? I did that. And I love it because it's healthy and I just thought it was funny. If someone tried airdropping me rocket soup as a PDF, I probably would take it just to see what on earth this is. And I don't know if that's healthy for your computer or your phone to do. That's a little bit of information about me. So I'm making rocket soup. I'm getting my onions to start to cook down a little bit. Look at these carrots. Aren't they crazy? Look at that. Evelyn was asking me about the carrots earlier. It's like, what are you doing with these carrots? Where do they come from? Why are they purple and yellow? Carrots are rich in beta-carotene. That's one of your vitamin A. That's the process of vitamin A. It's an antioxidant. You need that. And don't let me forget to tell the funny story about carotene later. But why is this purple? It's something called anthocyanins. And this is something I go to over and over again in practice. Anthocyanins is another flavonoid. It's an important flavonoid. Now, these carrots are rich in anthocyanins. That's why they're purple. Anthocyanins have an important role that they play in our health, especially with cardiovascular health, the integrity of the endothelium of your arteries. And so, people who have a lot of inflammation, people whose diet's not been great, they have cholesterol levels high, and there's oxidation going on with that cholesterol, you do LDL oxidized, this is a good thing to give them. The problem, though, with anthocyanins, if you spend a minute to look them up online, they're not necessarily heat stable. What does that mean? It means if I heat them up, you start to break down the anthocyanins. You lose some of the potency. Now, this recipe is not going to be that hot. It's not going to be screaming hot. And it takes about an hour to lose 50% of potency at 99 degrees Celsius. I'm not going to be that hot that long. So I'm going to still keep a little over 50% of the anthocyanins, but I'm also going to maintain in my carrots all the beta-carotene. That's in there as well. So I put them in there. Now they look cool, and I know they're striking, and you can put these in a salad or you just give them to your kid and tell them they're super powered. Whatever it took to make my kids eat vegetables, I did. Whatever it took. And I'm not proud of some of the things I would tell them, like, if you eat this, you'll be able to see at night. And, there's that whole myth that you eat carrots a lot and you're going to be able to see in the dark. It does help with vision at night, but it doesn't give you superpowers, right? So anyway, vegetables. Speaking of vegetables, here's a funny story. I don't want to get to the story of this one. When I was a kid, my mom, my brother turned orange when we were little. He was little. My brother's 9 years younger than me, my brother Michael. I love him. And he turned orange once. And my mom brought him to the doctors. And what it ended up being is my mom was on a kick, sweet potato kick, where she would make him baked sweet potatoes. And that boy, at 3 or 4 years old, only ate sweet potatoes. And he turned orange, like orange. It was kind of a funny story. And so that's the thing. You can eat, these guys a lot, but be careful if you eat them all the time. You're going to turn orange. It's a funny story around my house. You eat sweet potatoes, but did you eat enough sweet potatoes to turn orange? That kind of joke. So these are our carrots. They lend a lot of sweetness to the dish. When they cook, there's a lot of natural sugars that get released from the carrots. Took more than I chew there. I'm just lining them up and cutting them as in little dice. There's different ways to do that. There's different tools you can use. Mandolins. I just do old-fashioned, cutting them down. And the goal is to get them softened. Make it the base of the rocket soup. Speaking of variants, one of the things I've done with this dish to make it unique is sometimes I'll make what's called a puttanesca variant of it, where I'll put salted capers in it, and I will put in black olives. If my wife's not looking, I'll put in anchovies, and I will also put in some chili pepper and or calabrese chilies in there. And the goal of that is to make it have that puttanesca flavor. And I serve that over pasta, and that's another variant of this dish. Another variant of this dish is, I don't know if it's really French, I kind of pretend it is French, is I will take an egg and I will separate the yolk from the egg. I'll take the egg white and I'll put it in a small saucepan with the soup, with a bowl, with a ladle of the soup. And I'll cook the egg white in the soup. As the egg white starts to cook, it becomes white. I remove it from heat. And I'll put the egg yolk right on the top of that. And that egg yolk, you mix it in, and that's going to give it that extra little creamy little flavor to it. It's a French soup I used to have. I had that done that way, and that was delicious. So carrots are cooking. Carrots, the thing about carrots, if you have 3 whole carrots in a day, that helps lower your blood pressure. Benefit of carrots. Another thing about carrots are unique is celery. Hello. Celery. If you eat 3 whole celery sticks a day, it lowers your blood pressure. It could help lower your blood pressure. Only way to know for sure is try it and to check blood pressure. And also, celery, cool thing about celery is that it takes more calories to digest it than you get from it. So it's a negative calorie snack. We have our garlic. I'm not going to use that one. There we go. Same thing as last time, garlic. I add that towards the end because garlic, if you try cooking it too long with onions in the beginning, they cook faster, the onions. It's something to add towards the end. You want to overdo it with your garlic, but you want to do just enough to give it that extra little layer of flavor. It's like an acrid flavor that it lends to it. You want to cook down your onions till they no longer have their acrid flavor. That's that spicy kind of flavor. So the only acrid should be just a little bit from your garlic, to the degree that you like garlic. So now we're going to let that cook for a little bit. I'm going to add some salt to it and some pepper. The recipe you're going to have has how much to use of each thing. You'll notice I'm just kind of freehanding things. After you've done it for a while, you kind of get a feeling for how much to use of each thing. So the mirepoix is loosened up quite a bit and it's starting to cook through. It's softening. It looks good. And there's a good amount of color of purple in here. That's the anthocyanins. Again, it has been hot long enough to lose that benefit of the anthocyanins. The worst I'm going to look at is losing 50% of it, which is better than nothing. Better than nothing. And don't let me forget, I'm going to talk about cilantro and chelating heavy metals as we go. So the next step, I'm going to add into this 1.5 cups of lentils, and we're going to mix that in there. And we're going to get the lentils coated in the oil. Let them start to heat up. Lentils? So why do I like lentils so much? Lentils are delicious. The lentils, why are lentils so good? Lentils are, if you're looking for a plant-based source of protein or a plant-based source of fiber, lentils are hard to beat. And why I'm saying this is because one of the things I'm always looking at for my patients who eat a plant-based diet, how are they doing with their carb intake relative to their fiber intake and protein? A lot of their sources of protein, a lot of their sources of food are going to have a lot more carbs in it if they're going more the grain route. Vegetables are fine. We're fine. But if we're doing grain in that diet as well, you got to wonder. And then if you're doing grains in the diet and you're doing legumes, you're going to be getting carbs from the beans. You're going to be getting carbs from the grains. So the net effect of carbohydrates is going to be raising your blood sugar, right? And insulin, and your body wants to store fat. So I'm always looking at what they're eating. I'm trying to reduce the grain component. That'd be like taking breads out or reducing breads, reducing any refined crackers, being cautious on how much rice we're using. And I want to look at their sources of proteins in the sense of their plant proteins. I like lentils because the amount of fiber relative to protein and relative to carb, this is a high fiber source. This is good because the fiber being higher reduces the effect of carbohydrates on your blood sugar. So the higher your fiber is, the more it's going to blunt the blood sugar spike you have when you eat a grain or you eat a carb. So fiber is a really important thing to maintain blood sugar stability, lower that down, and really mitigate the risk of gaining weight associated with eating carbs and grains, specifically in this sense. So lentils are in, going with the lentils. And they're little, little guys, they're cute, I like the texture of lentils. So the lentils are coated in oil. So now the next step that our lentils are pretty much coated in oil, they're starting to heat up, is to add our tomatoes. I use San Marzano organic tomatoes for this one. You can use heirloom tomatoes. You could do whatever you want with this. This is just one of the ones I do. It's great. Come home after a weeknight at work. You can just make this not that long. It doesn't take that long. Maybe about a half an hour prep work and throwing it in here and sauteing at the same time, and then about 40 minutes under pressure, and then it's ready to eat. And you only had to put half an hour, maybe a little bit longer work into making it, and then the rest of it's cooking, while you're doing something else. So wrangling the kids, getting their homework done, that sort of thing. So I use the San Marzano organic tomatoes, and then I ran it through the blender to make sure I broke it down because they were full-sized tomatoes. So I blended it. Usually I use a food mill at my house to kind of process them into a nice consistency, because some people don't like chunky tomatoes. My wife doesn't like chunky tomatoes in her food. Some people are just against consistency issues around that. So now, this is a trick that I learned with risotto and things like that. This is a moment where the lentils are going to start absorbing moisture, and the first moisture I want them to absorb is going to be from the tomatoes. So that's going to sit here for a few minutes. It's going to absorb. I'm going to let those lentils start to soften up with the tomato. That's going to help set the flavor profile. I'm going to add to it at the same time 3 bay leaves, 3 fresh bay leaves. You can use dried ones if you want, but if you have your hands on fresh, that's great. I used to have a bay leaf tree in my backyard years ago. They're cute. Bay leaf, it's like a bush. So we're going to let that sit for a little bit. As I mentioned last time, and I feel like I don't work for this company. I'm gonna represent them a little bit here right now. These cups are not made with plastic. These are made with PLA. They're made from bamboo. They will break down in the environment around us. This is a safe compound to cook with or to drink out of. These are not going to give you BPAs or phthalates because they're not derived from petroleum. These, again, come from bamboo, so they're a relatively safe way to store water. So I was using those to measure. These are your 16 ounces. I'm going to add 32 ounces of water. I'm now then going to add better than bouillon. I use better than bouillon. You can use other types of bouillon. You can make your own stock, whatever you like to use, but I use better than bouillon. And for this one, since I use 32 ounces, I'm going to probably use 5 tablespoons of bouillon. hard to get a tablespoon out of this because it's really sticky. Doesn't really give you a true tablespoon, so I'm kind of eyeballing it, feeling it. And mix that in. And the next step is gonna be cilantro. I misspoke on the last video. I talked about the flavor, and I said chicken noodle soup. Yeah, I meant to say alphabet soup. So alphabet soup I grew up on as a kid, and I just loved alphabet soup as a kid. It's my favorite. And it has a unique flavor. It's a tomato soup that has little alphabet flavored, alphabet shaped pasta noodles in there. It's kind of a cool little thing as a kid to eat. And what the tomato soup has as a unique flavor is cilantro when it's been cooked. That's what makes that cool flavor that it has. So when you cook down cilantro, it gives that unique flavor. Cilantro, you know, a fun thing is when I was in med school, I originally thought I would do environmental toxicology because I just loved it and I loved learning about it. And I remembered, you know, studies were coming out about the benefit of cilantro to chelate heavy metals out of a person. Now, there's some animal studies that show that's possible, and they show some chances of it. You have to eat a high amount. If the animal eats, have to eat a lot. There are companies that make products out there that are all about, you know, chelating with cilantro. We did a test on rotation once in clinic where we did a provoked urinary challenge, where we basically challenged how much this can actually chelate out of a human being versus a prescribed agent such as succimer, which is also known as dimethylsuccimuric acid, or DMSA. Captomer is another name. Any one of those names work well for as being prescribed as a medication. So when you take the prescribed medication, we know for sure it's with these heavy metals out of you. Definitely, absolutely. And we don't see does cilantro pull heavy metals out? Not much, but still, it's enough to try it. I would still use cilantro and think this is probably going to be good for me because the phenolic compounds in there, there are some studies showing there is some benefit for that. And even if it pulls out a small micro amount of lead out of your body, a small micro amount of arsenic out of your body, what's wrong with that? You know, as long as we're not making claims about it, saying this is going to pull heavy metals out of your body and sell it to you for a lot of money, that's where I have a problem. But in this case, adding to your food, you know, knowing that's going to have some benefit there, that's not a bad thing. So, okay, so I have my cilantro in there, I have my bay leaf in there, I have my mirepoix in there, which is my carrots, my celery, and my onion, lentils, tomatoes, broth, everything's in there. I think we're ready to set it up. So we're going to go for 40 minutes in the pressure cooker on high, and then we'll get back to you. Hey, we're back, and the lentils are done. Oh, you don't, hey, have you ever seen this thing? This is pretty cool. You put this right there and holds it. That's a fun thing you do with your Instant Pot. There's a little latch piece that hooks into the little handle and just sits there. That way you don't have to have your lid on the countertop spilling some of the soup. Yeah, it makes less mess. So, soup, how did it come out? I think it came out good. You can make it thinner by adding more broth to it. Absolutely. This is a little bit of a thicker batch because it's rainy here today, so I made it a little bit thicker. Thought that was kind of appropriate. And then when it's done, one of the ways I like to prepare it is I put a little fresh cilantro over the top, and I put a little cheese over that as well. Probably should put the cheese first, then cilantro, but that's all right. It's probably a bigger serving than I'm going to eat. And there you have it. This is my rocket soup. This is how I got my kids to eat beans and lentils, basically kind of sneaking it past them. So I hope you guys enjoy. I hope this works out for you. Let me know in the comments if you had a chance to make it and how it worked out for you. And I'll see you at the next time.